Okay, so we finished with the high frequency layer, and when I zoom in you can actually see some of the difference, but maybe not too much because it was really small details. Especially you can notice on the nose I had some really bad spots, and right now we cannot see them anymore. Of course, as you can see over here, it's a very small change, as there's no reason to do too many things on that high frequency layer. And right now we are going to the low frequency layer, and as I said before, you can actually find a lot of information about this on YouTube, and that's why I think it's even more important to talk about this a little bit more, because actually the information that you have everywhere are not so complete about the low frequency layer. I believe you need some more information about this, because many people, if you already know this technique, many people just blur this out. And yeah, that's a good technique. If we do a retouch, if we do some basic beauty retouch, it's really amazing technique when we blur out the skin so we can even out the tones, and that's super powerful. But what if we need to be a little bit more precise? What if we don't want to even out the tones on some areas? Why if we want to take care just on specific areas like this one? Why if we want to remove these wrong colors, but we don't want to change all of the face? So that's what I'm going to explain you in this lesson. And of course, similar as before, we can use all of the tools. We can use a healing brush tool, we can use even clone stamp tool as well. So we work very similar, but we use these tools a bit different. But before we start, the first step about which you should always remember is duplicate the low frequency layer. So I'm going to press Ctrl Command J to duplicate this. And why I'm doing this? Because here I'm going to work maybe a little bit more, and it's very easy to do a mistake on this layer. So that's why I always duplicate this layer, so it's kind of non-destructive. If I'm going to do some mistakes, I'm just going to remove this layer, and then it all will be fine, because I'm going to do my work once again. So as I duplicated this right now, as I said before, I'm going to send you to the other course. You can find this on YouTube if you don't know this. The technique about blurring out the skin. We select quite big parts of it and blurring this out. But in this specific course, which I consider I want to show you like really advanced thing, I'm going to show you different techniques which are much more precise, where you can handle this in much more precise way. So there's actually two tools I mostly use. First is healing brush tool, as well as I'm using mixer brush tool, which you may be heard of, but I believe not many people knows how does it all work over here. So I'm going to explain you this as well. But at first I'm going to use healing brush tool, and as I said, we work very similar as before, but on this layer I'm not going to use hard-edged brush, but very soft-edged brush. Of course, I believe I don't have to repeat myself that when we work with frequency separation, we always work on the current layer. So what I'm doing here, I'm finding the different color spots here on the open spaces, like on the forehead, a bit on the nose, but I'm not going too close to the edges, like close to the lips, etc. So adjust the size of it, and over here I'm just going to work with the spots like this. Sometimes if you want to see a bit better how does it looks like, maybe I don't know if it's helpful for you, but some people work like that, just turn off the high frequency layer and then you can see all of the tones. But I don't really find this so comfortable, so I prefer to work with all of my layers visible. And as you can see, I'm working quite far from the edges, there's open spaces over here. I'm just going to actually cover these ugly spots. Of course, if we come in a bit inside over here, we cannot work with such a big brush, but if you are quite far away, you can adjust the size of the brush to the thing you're doing. As you can see here, I have a few different colors, so yeah, that's the area I need to work on. And have a look, it's actually getting a bit better. As you can see here, I'm really afraid to work with big size of the brush, so I'm choosing the small size and very carefully here. Okay, so take a look on the forehead, it already looks much better, but take care, like, don't do some shadows, but just work with the colors. That's my rule. By this tool I'm not working with the shadows, but I'm just fixing the colors like that one, and trying to do this very softly, to not, because yeah, I don't have to lie to you, it's very easy to do some mistakes, so that's why I'm not overusing this somewhere close to the edges. Here I have a bit more spots, so yeah, we cannot miss anything, so you can zoom this in if you are not sure about something, but actually the main spots you can see from the distance. As you can see here, I have some weird color, actually it was wrong makeup, so things like that happens as well. But about that thing, it's not actually good anymore to fix this by Heal and Brush tool, because it's, as I said, too close to the edge, and I just, as you can see, it doesn't work so well. So we can try to sort out this just a little bit, but it won't be so great. And for this I have actually different tool, and I'm going to show you this. So maybe have a look, here's a few more spots. So I'm just going to do this quickly. That's how I work with Heal and Brush tool on the low frequency layer. I'm just covering the color spots that has to disappear from this image to make it look really nice. So I didn't have too many. Of course I could work a bit on the neck maybe, but I'm just going to zoom this in, because on the neck it's actually much more clear. So just, as you can see, few different colors here, so just going to do this with big size of the brush, and I'm going to give you a look, difficult, like this. I went too far, so don't be afraid if you go too far, just to fix your mistake. Okay, so I think it's enough with the Heal and Brush tool. As you can see, there's small change, not so strong. And right now let's go to something a bit more serious, to the thing I was talking to you before. How does we work with it? And I'm going to explain you about this a little bit. So the next step I'm usually do on this low frequency layer is this mixer brush tool. And once again, check the hardness of your brush, and once again I'm working of course with hardness 0%, very soft brush. Let's go next. Over here, just clean brush, and here these 2 points, load the brush after each stroke. Keep this selected, so we're going to load the brush after each stroke we're going to make. And this second one, I cannot move my pen, oh it's so difficult. Clean the brush after each stroke, so I don't need this selected. And settings, keep as a custom. And right now I'm going to explain you these settings, because it might be a bit confusing, I understand this. So very quickly, let's start from the wet. Simply speaking, the mixer brush tool is the same you can imagine when you paint the room or you paint something using just paint. So treat this as a paint, but we're going to take a clone of our paint or sample of our paint from the face of the model. So imagine how is it to paint when your paint is dry. You cannot to do this, so we have to set how wet we want our paint. Of course, if we keep the wetness as a 100%, the paint will be too wet, so we're going to smudge this too much and it will be difficult to keep the control. And don't forget, we work with the skin, so I prefer to keep the wet very low. I checked this before, 12%. I would set around 10 up to 20%, it's up to you. I keep this very low to have a bit more control, as I don't want to smudge this too much. So that's the first point. So I keep this quite dry. I'm not going to smudge quite much, but I still can do this. Next step is load. So actually, when we keep the load is the thing how much the paint we're going to take on our brush. Let's say I'm going to explain this like that. So of course, if we're going to take 100% of the paint, the stamp of the paint, into our brush, we'll have a lot of paint. And when we put a lot of paint on something, this paint is getting dry a bit later. So once again, we're going to do huge smudge when we have too much paint. But when we don't have too much, the paint is getting dry very quickly, so we cannot smudge this so much, and it gives us a bit more control. So when we keep this 0, our paint going to dry so quickly we cannot smudge this. When we keep this at 100%, our paint will be getting dry very long, so we can smudge this too much and we don't have so much control. So once again, I keep this quite low, 20%. Mix. It's all about how much you're going to mix the paint. When I keep this low, it means when I'm going to take a stamp of the paint, it's going to mix only 10% of the paint I took with the rest of it. So like 10% of the stamp I took from it. Actually, the sample, I'm sorry, not stamp, of course. 10% of the sample I took from this area. So 90% is going to stay on this. For example, when I'm going to take from this area and paint over here, it's going to mix only 10% from here and 90% from here. So once again, that's why I keep this very low, because it's going to give you a lot of control. If you're going to set mix at 100%, you're going to take 100% of the sample of the paint from here, and here will be 0. So we're going to mix this totally, like we're going to take it from this and put this here. And flow is just flow. Of course, it was explained very times. Flow giving us like workflow. You keep this low, you have a bit more control, because you're not putting this that much. If you keep this at 100%, all the values going to go into the new area at 100%. When you set 5%, you can just paint over and over, and you have a bit more control. So I believe I explained this quite well. The values are mostly about how huge sample we're going to take. So usually we keep all of this quite low. And what I'm doing, once again, I'm going to this forehead, and right now I'm usually keep quite big size of the brush. So I'm going to take a sample from this kind of nice looking area, and I can smudge this just a little bit, but don't lose the control. Maybe you won't see such a big difference here, but where it's worth to smudge, I would say this area. As you can see, we still have some not really nice color, and it's all about makeup. Makeup wasn't really perfect in this area. So what I'm doing, as you can see, I'm just smudging this, and we couldn't do this using Hillen brush tool, but mixer brush tool was really great for it. So have a look, how is it changing? And as you can see, we have all of our settings are very soft. So actually we're not destroying this. We can see how slowly is it changing. Of course, and you can just do this over and over till the point you will be happy. When you have some shadows over here, I'm just going to do, and that's how I'm going to handle this shadow. Of course, I don't think I can do this totally, but I can remove this a bit. So yeah, actually It's even removing more than I expected, so later on I will have less job, but that's how I do this. Takes from somewhere here, and we're mixing the colors, so the skin looks very similar, as you can see. Yeah, it looks absolutely great, but I see some shadows over here, so let's mix this in this area. Why I'm not doing this everywhere? I think the answer would be quite simple, because I'm trying to... What's about the high-end beauty retouch? It's not about how much you're going to remove from the image, but it's about how much you're going to keep on the image. And so I'm just trying to remove all the really bad things, but all of the good things I really want to keep on this image. So that's why I don't really want to do this on all over the skin, but only in the areas which I'm not really happy with. As you can see over here, and don't have this area, it's really bothers me. We will be working with this a bit later. Here, as you can see, another not really perfect area, so let's map this a bit here. I don't, usually I would speed up this video, but I don't see any sense, so I'm just going to do this quicker. As you can see, this tool works really great. Let's go to the nose, and this area needs to be done a bit more. Once again, I'm just going to do as much as I can in this lesson, and the rest of it, if I check this later, I'm just going to fix this if I see, well, I could do a bit more. But I'm trying to do as much as I can to make you look at this, so you can have very clear view on the things I'm doing. I'm not going to hide anything. And this tool is actually, right now, as before, we couldn't sort out the area around the lips, but with this tool it will be very easy for us. We don't have really nice texture over here, so right now we had some shadow here, and this mixer brush, as you can see, can cover this shadow. We can mix the paint, so it will look so much better. Over here we have too much shadow, but I'm not doing too much because I prefer to do this by steps, and with shadows I'm going to work a bit more. I'm going to show you how you can deal with this. A bit over here. Okay, zoom this out. And what's very important, as you can see, I have some pink over here, and this area wasn't looking really nice since the beginning, and we have a lot of work over here. So I'm just going to do quite big size, and just to try to make this like me. As you can see, I'm just softening this, and this looks so much better. So here, very small steps. If you have image like that, just do the same, just kind of even out the texture here. Of course, into this course I'm going to give you a lot of actions that's going to speed up your workflow, so for sure you can do this way quicker, of course, and you don't have to talk all of the time. So yeah, I think I actually sorted this out. I'm just going to have one more look on this image, a bit more close to the nose. And I'm going to talk to you once again in the next lesson, because we're going to do the third step I usually do in frequency separation.